Hello everybody and welcome back to another video with the Overwatch League. Returning from its little break this weekend, I want to do a little bit of a check-in before I do my picks video later this week. Just to kind of talk a bit about where things stand based on some of the stuff that's happened. Obviously I didn't do a recap for the most recent week. I just have I had some illness and stuff that kind of got in the way, and so now we're back and we have the upcoming finale for the summer stage, the final couple of games for each team. Obviously the new meta shift, the introduction of the Flashpoint game mode, the introduction of Illari. Lots of things kind of going on as we go forward. So I just want to do a little video, talk about where things are as we head into this final leg of the season and kind of get everything going in the best way possible. So let's start real quick by taking a look at the standings for the league. You can see here we have the Western region, we have the Eastern region as things stand currently based on what we saw in the summer stage, and then we have the overall standings for the playoffs for the Eastern region. So let's start with the West real quick. Obviously, still atop the Western region is the Atlanta Reign, despite their two losses, one to the Florida Mayhem, one to the Houston Outlaws. They're still atop the Western region, and the Mayhem are just behind them. Then you have the Outlaws right at the top three, so if the season were to end today, those three would be the auto-qualifying teams for the Western region in the playoffs, and then the Uprising, Titans, Shock, Excelsior, Defiant, Justice, and Spitfire would be your play-in teams, while the Gladiators, Valiant, and Eternal would be the teams outside looking in going into the final stretch of the season. And in the Eastern region, the summer stage has concluded with its qualifiers. Dallas Fuel finished as the #1 team, followed by the Infernal, Spark, Dynasty, Dreamers, Dragons, Panthera, O2 Blast, Charge, and Pokerface. Let's start with the Western region for now. Just Eastern region has lots to kind of talk about, but I think it'll be interesting to watch as we transition to this new meta, new map type. My understanding, honestly, so far of what I've played of Flashpoint and kind of the general consensus of Flashpoint, the meta seems to be kind of up in the air right now. I think I've heard a lot of people say the Orisa-based compositions look to be pretty good. I think it's like Orisa Sim-based comps with like Torbjorn and maybe Bastion. It's an odd-looking meta right now. Seems like Illari is going to be one of the high, kind of most played heroes. There was a tweet from Reinforce a few days ago where he said that he heard that Illari is strong meta, and the current composition is Orisa, Torbjorn, Symmetra, Batiste, and Illari. Which is a weird meta, if I'm being honest with you. I don't really know what to expect with that, but not my favorite kind of meta change going into playoffs. An odd one, to be sure, but it is what it is. That's where we are with that. We'll see what happens when we actually get there. If this is the meta, if we are going to see rush types of comps, or this weird turret comp, I honestly don't know who's going to be good. It makes it hard to kind of guess. There were some rumors about D.Va being meta, which if D.Va were meta, I think that'd be good for your off-tank teams. I'm definitely a little worried about Houston if Orisa's meta. Maybe Fearless has improved a lot on Orisa over the years, but it's definitely one of his weak points in the past, which is a point of potential concern, but she's a different hero now than she was back in Overwatch 1, so I don't think it's that big of a shock if things don't go as well for that roster. Where I think things are going to be the most interesting to kind of watch is just how the meta kind of shapes around some of these teams with really good ERE players. If she is as high impact of a hero as we think she might be, how are players like Twilight going to look on her? Fielder, Shu, Shu, Violet, Iari, and Batiste backline sounds disgustingly good. Izayaki Twilight could be really dangerous with that duo, potentially better than something like a Chio Fielder, where maybe Chio, he's good on Batiste, but is he good enough to beat something like Shu Violet? How to do RuPaul and Chorong, who have been on a team that's looked really, really good recently, kind of compared to that. So there's a lot of questions potentially surrounding the meta shift that could be interesting to kind of watch out for. It makes it tough to kind of predict where teams are going to end up, honestly. But it's going to be interesting to kind of see how the meta shapes up in the Western region, which are still fighting for those last couple of play-in spots and trying to finalize their lineups here going into the play-ins. We know the top 5 teams already have at least qualified for the play-ins. I think the Reign and Mayhem might have both qualified for playoffs already. I'm not 100% sure if that's the case. I think they did because they both beat the Uprising, but I could be incorrect there. But the Titans, Uprising, Outlaws, Mayhem, Reign, all of them are at least in the play-ins, if not already in the playoffs. And then there's other spots still up for grabs, but we know that that's going to be kind of the story of the Western region going forward. I think it's going to be interesting to kind of see how this meta shift affects things going forward, because if you look really at this Western region, the best teams in the world right now seemingly come from the West, right? The top 4 teams in the Midseason Madness were the Western region's top 4, the Reign, the Outlaws, the Mayhem, the Uprising, in that order for the Western region in the Midseason Madness. So if the playoffs continue to be that path, right, seemingly the top 4 teams in the West are still the top 4 teams in the world. Could someone like Vancouver or Toronto jump up and match them? Will Dallas look good in this upcoming meta? Will one of the Eastern region teams look really good? That's kind of the question that you have there. So I'm intrigued to see where we go with the West. I think it's the more interesting of the 2 regions right now. I think that they're kind of fighting it out towards the top, and we'll see kind of where things go there. Where I'm also very interested as we move over to the Eastern region is to see if the Dallas Fuel really are capable of making that run. I think we're going to an Orisa meta. That is not a great look for Dallas. I think we have seen Hanbin look a lot better as he's kind of become more flexible on his heroes, and I think he's become a lot more versatile. But they're not currently in that driver's seat for the playoffs. If you look at the Eastern region playoff structure, right, Infernal and Spark right now are sitting in the best possible spots. They have the top finishes from the spring stage. So Infernal, they won they're going to be the top team in their bracket, and so if they get that number 1 finish there, that's a much better run than what the Fuel have. The Fuel did have a good run in the last tournament, so they're in a decent spot, but definitely going to be interesting to see if Dallas has what it takes to make it ahead of the Spark, jump that Spark roster and push them below and get that spot in the playoffs. Automatically. It'll be interesting to kind of see there. I don't really feel great about the contenders teams, especially SPG and Rhodes. They didn't look great the last time around. I think the other teams around them have just gotten better, generally speaking, outside of O2 Blast. So I don't really think any of the contenders teams have a great shot to move on to the Eastern region. But as we're moving into now the knockouts of the Eastern region, things are way different. And it's a completely different animal. Because the Western region will have a couple of games to warm up in this new meta, to learn this new meta before play-ins begins. Basically, the Eastern region is in full play-in mode, right? We're in the knockouts now for the Eastern region. They are basically on the verge of figuring out who's going to playoffs. So they are going to be learning this new meta in real time, playing games that are not win or go home, but lose, and you're in a very bad position if you lose your first game. You only, if you lose your first game, you don't have a ton of chances to try to recover and bounce back. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see the Eastern region. I don't love the format for the Eastern region for this. I wish they would just do one bracket. I wish that they would just use things in a different... I just think the system that basically it takes your average finish between the 2 tournaments, and the 2 teams with the best average finish in the knockouts are the teams that move on for playoffs. It's an odd system. I understand that it's because of the contenders teams not playing the same number of games, and you want to give them a chance. But I do think it should just be if you win the group in the knockouts this time around, you should just qualify. I think it makes more sense than what they're doing now. It is what it is. It'll be kind of odd to watch, but it does kind of make them feel a little less important, because even if you lose, you're not out. Obviously, there's that third spot still, and it's a system that I just don't love. So we'll see how it plays out, but I think the fact that they not only are in a system that's odd, they also don't have any games before the knockouts begin to actually learn the new meta and learn the new maps. It's why they took the break, obviously, but they don't get that kind of growing period of getting a game or two in before they get to those knockout matches, which I think does hurt a lot in that region, right? Like, you definitely are going to be seeing some rough play come out of the Eastern region on these map types. I think it's going to hurt them in the long run. I don't think they're going to get nearly as much practice on them going into the playoffs, which could hurt them as well. So that's already a concern. They have to travel. They're kind of getting screwed over by a lot of the format for here at the end of the season. So it's rough for the Eastern region teams. I really don't have a lot of faith in them kind of moving out of this region, but I think it'll be interesting to see how the meta favors them. I don't think any of these teams should be particularly great in this meta. Maybe the Spark, I'd be shocked. They do have 2 flex supports if you really believe in Pineapple like that. But like Dallas, I feel like we've only really just started seeing MCD and Bliss click. Will changing heroes to a role that makes Bliss not as comfortable click as well? I don't know. Honda on Orisa, do I feel like he's going to be an elite Orisa? Hard to tell. The Soul Infernal, what is Mag going to do if he has to play Orisa? What is the impact of the damage players going to be when they're playing heroes that are not necessarily the most flashy? MN3 and Zest, Shy and Leave. These are players who have popped off in the past. They're not really playing big pop-off heroes. How is that going to work? So I think it's going to be interesting to see here because, like I said, we don't know what to expect. And it's why I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that one of these contenders teams actually has a decent run, because the meta is changing. None of these teams really know what they're doing. One of these teams could just figure out a really solid way to play. A team like Dreamers or a team like Poker Face that has these kind of really kind of high caliber players and players that are pretty good. And like Muse is a player that I would consider a very good Orisa. He was a very good Orisa during his time in the Overwatch League. So maybe they are a team that just figure out how to play around this meta better than anybody else quicker, and they just had this miracle run that doesn't necessarily get them in the playoffs, but shakes things up and makes it, as such that maybe a team like Dallas gets bounced earlier than we expect, or a team like the Spark gets bounced early and they don't make it in. They have to go into the play-in. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I don't really know what to make of the Eastern region and the way the format's going to work with this meta shift. I think it's going to be unfortunate, but I'm intrigued to say the very least. But that's really it for today's video. Kind of a short one, kind of a quick one, just to kind of give you a little bit of a taste on what I'm thinking about as we kind of move into the later parts of this season. It'll be interesting to kind of see how we finish up, and I'm curious to hear from you, your thoughts on where the meta's going, what you think is going to happen, why you think it's going to happen, whatever it is, teams you think are going to be okay, not okay, whatever it is. Love to hear from you in the comments down below, but that's all from me for today. If you enjoyed this video and want more like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing. That's going to be all from me for today. Thank you all once again. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.